The candidates for the presidency of Ecuador, Luisa González and Daniel Noboa, will culminate their campaign on Thursday ahead of the second round of election on April 13th. And the Dominican Republic has declared 3 days of national mourning after the collapse of a nightclub roof in the nation's capital claimed the lives of at least 219 people. And the government of China questioned the unilateral hegemonic protectionist approach exercised by the United States against the attack of ships from the Asian giant subject to Trump tariffs. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from teleSUR studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We'll begin with the news. Stay with us. The candidates for the presidency of Ecuador, Luisa González and Daniel Noboa, will culminate their campaign this Thursday ahead of the second round of the election to be held next Sunday, April 13th. Both candidates will make their last proselytizing activities during this day before midnight, when the electoral silence kicks off. Both candidates showed Guayaquil for their closing events, as the candidate of the Citizens' Revolution, Luisa González, will be in the city from 15:30 local time, together with her supporters for a big show and concert. On the other hand, the president and candidate for the governing party, Daniel Noboa, will carry out his last events in spite of not having requested to the National Assembly the corresponding license to participate in the vote collecting activities. On the next to last day of campaign, Citizens' Revolution candidate Luisa González gathered her followers in Quito for her campaign closing. During the day, González mentioned that she has the support of more than 75 organizations. She also said that she will build a university in the south of the capital and will provide funds for the expansion of the Quito subway. For his part, candidate Daniel Noboa made a speech in the same city and emphasized that a possible new presidential term will continue with the objective of ending the mafias amid in social crisis and political and environmental violence. And Argentina's labor unions began on Thursday a 24-hour general strike against the adjustment policies implemented by the government of Javier Milei. The strike, promoted by the unions that make up the General Confederation of Labor, constitutes a protest action against the budget cuts and other starvation measures of the Milei administration. In response to the social inequality resulting from the neoliberal policies of a government that ignores citizens' demands. As a prelude to the action, unions and social organizations staged on Wednesday a massive demonstration in front of the National Congress in Buenos Aires in support of the retirees who demand their rights every week. And during the 9th Summit of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States in Tegucigalpa, capital of Honduras, Colombia assumed the pro-tempore presidency of the organization for the period 2025-2026. Petro said at the closing of the summit that he will work on a strategy towards Haiti and its democratic strengthening and the concrete overcoming of the blockades imposed on Cuba and Venezuela. The new president of CELAC acknowledged that what follows will be stormy months, but then clarified that storms are always good because they lead to pour faster than before. For this reason, he asked CELAC and the region to act in unity. And in the Dominican Republic, the number of fatalities caused by the collapse of the roof of the jet-set nightclub rose to 219. The families of the missing people denounced the lack of transparency and negligence in the identification process. It should be noted that more than 300 rescuers continue working and providing constant medical support. Also, in a gesture of solidarity, a brigade from Puerto Rico joined the work in the field. In this regard, the Dominican government called on the population and the media to avoid this spreading unconfirmed information so as not to generate confusion or increase the pain of those affected. We now have a first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. The main stock exchanges in Asia opened Thursday with strong gains, with gains of around 9% in the case of Tokyo and Taipei. The rally in Asian markets comes after Trump announced a temporary pause in the new tariffs that came into force for dozens of his trading partners the day before, after most had agreed to negotiate. The Asian giant sparks also started the day in positive, and the benchmark indexes of the Shanghai and Shenzhen stock exchanges advanced by 1.29% and 2.29% respectively. The rise comes in spite of the fact that China raised tariffs on U.S. products to at least 84% the day before, a measure to which Trump responded with a total levies of 125% to Chinese goods. And the government of China questioned the unilateral hegemonic protectionist approach exercised by the United States against the attack of ships from the Asian giant subject to Trump tariffs. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Lin Jian said that Washington is using tariff adjustment to curb Beijing's dominance in the international shipping industry. The foreign minister said that such measures will increase the cost of global shipping, which will weaken production and supply chains in all nations of the world. Lin Jian also added that Washington blames Beijing for its failure in the shipping industry, a statement that lacks a factual basis and contradicts economic common sense. Also on Thursday, the Chinese Foreign Ministry once again warned that the tariff imposed by the United States threatened the entire world and damaged the multilateral trading system.
The U.S., for its own selfish reasons, has used tariffs as a weapon to exert extreme pressure and seek selfish gains, which has seriously infringed upon the legitimate rights and interests of all countries, seriously violated the rules of the World Trade Organization, seriously damaged the rules-based multilateral trading system, and seriously impacted the stability of the global economic order. This is a blatant act that goes against the will of the world and goes against the whole world.
Meanwhile, China's Ministry of Commerce stressed that pressure and threats from Donald Trump's administration are not the right way to negotiate with Beijing.
The position of the Chinese side is clear and consistent. The door to dialogue is open, but it must be based on mutual respect and conducted in an equal manner. If the U.S. chooses to engage in confrontation, China will fight to the end. Pressure, threats, and blackmail are not the correct way to engage with China. We hope the U.S. will meet China halfway, and, based on the principles of mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and win-win cooperation, properly resolve differences through dialogue and consultation.
And in Malaysia, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations highlighted to avoid taking countermeasures ahead of the U.S. reciprocal tariffs. At the end of a meeting of Asian ministers and central bank governors in Kuala Lumpur, participants detailed that retaliation is not an option. They further stressed the need to continue a straightforward and constructive dialogue with the United States to settle trade disputes and build up a balanced and sustainable relation. This comes after Washington announced Thursday the decision to pause for 90 days the non-reciprocal tariffs, which earlier U.S. President Trump had stated to enact as of April 9th to dozens of countries.
Of course, I would say Alhamdulillah, at least for now, there's a temporary reprieve. But at the same time, there is a very strong, hardened position vis-à-vis China, which is also a problem to us, because it will impact our economy, in a way.
ASEAN reaffirms its continued commitment to open, inclusive, and rule-based multilateral trading systems. We stand ready to work constructively with all partners, including the United States, to find balanced, forward-looking solutions that support a more resilient and sustainable global economy.
With that, we'll share with you the talking points and the joint statement.
And the New Zealand Parliament voted down on Thursday the controversial Treaty Principles Bill, which sparked nationwide protests as it sought to radically reinterpret the founding treaty between indigenous Maori tribes and the British Crown. Precisely 112 lawmakers opposed the bill and only 11 voted in favor, ending a month-long fight for indigenous rights. The potential passing of the Principles Bill, tabled by the minor Libertarian ACT Party, triggered New Zealand's largest ever protest on Maori rights and launched 300,000 public submissions. The 1840 Treaty of Waitangi is considered the country's founding document and is instrumental in upholding the rights of indigenous people in the nation.
Koutou katoa. Mr. Speaker, normally when I rise in this House to speak on a bill, I say it's a great privilege to speak on the bill. That is not the case today. This is a grubby little bill, born of a grubby little deal. It has had a colossal impact on the fabric of our nation, and this bill will forever be a stain on our country. But, Mr. Speaker, what I do take pride in is the way New Zealanders have come together over the last 6 months to say loud and clear, this is not us. This is not Aotearoa New Zealand.
Now we have our second and final short break coming up. Before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final break, we're going to be right back. Welcome back. Palestinian population continues suffering from Israel's genocidal campaign against the Gaza Strip. In the last 24 hours, at least 38 people were killed by the intense bombardments of the occupation army. Israeli warplanes struck residential buildings in the Shuhaya neighborhood east of the city of Gaza on Wednesday, leaving at least 30 Palestinians dead, including children. The bombings also left around 55 injured and 80 people missing under the debris. On the other hand, Israeli troops continue to demolish homes in southern Rafah under heavy artillery and machine gun cover. According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, 50,846 people have been killed and more than 115,000 wounded since the beginning of the Israeli genocidal campaign against Gaza in October 7, 2023. And as the Israeli regime continues the siege of the Gaza Strip, 60,000 Palestinian children starve, according to the Ministry of Health in the Palestinian territory. Since March 2nd, the Israeli regime has closed off all crossings into Gaza and blocked the entry of essential supplies, including food, medicine, and water. The Health Ministry has warned that the lack of adequate nutrition and drinking water will compound health challenges, with the continued ban on vaccinations for children, especially polio vaccinations. According to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, Israel's ongoing siege of the region has had a devastating impact on children in the enclave. And the International Court of Justice will start public hearings on Israel's obligations regarding its presence in the occupied Palestinian territories. The court clarified in a statement on Wednesday that the sessions will take place between April 28th and May 2nd at the court's headquarters in The Hague, the Netherlands. It added that 40 countries and 4 international and regional organizations had expressed their intention to participate in the oral arguments before the court. The court will also examine the activities of the United Nations and other international organizations in the occupied Palestinian territories. Meanwhile, in France, President Emmanuel Macron advanced Wednesday that his government would recognize Palestine as a state in the upcoming UN conference in New York in June this year. President Macron granted to be committed to collective regional security. In this regard, the leader argued his nation was willing to be part of a collective dynamics. However, he made clear his stance against those nations, namely Iran, that do not recognize Israel. Likewise, the French head of state supported the Zionist government by urging pro-Palestinian countries to acknowledge Israel as a state too. So far, 147 out of 193 UN members have seen Palestine as a state, whereas some Western countries, as the US, Canada, the UK, Germany, Italy, and France, have not. And a new round of negotiations between the Russian and U.S. delegations began in the Turkish city of Istanbul. The meeting between the Russian and U.S. delegates, held behind closed doors at the Russian Consulate General in Istanbul, focused on issues related to the functioning of the two countries' diplomatic representations. Russian ambassador to Washington, Alexander Darchev, heads the Russian delegation, while the U.S. team is led by Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Russia and Central Europe, Sonata Coulter. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization military Ramstein Flag 2025 exercise is expected to finish on April 11th, with the participation of some 100 aircraft from 18 allied nations which have been mounting operations across Northern Europe. The NATO Allied Air Command and the Royal Netherlands Air Force have led these multinational air military operations that started on March 31st. European heads assure these tactical training exercises are aimed at strengthening multi-domain operations, interoperability, and rapid response capabilities among allied forces. NATO members had decided to ramp up their money reserves and efforts on military exercises at the expense of their peoples following U.S. President Donald Trump's decision to stop allocating further funds to the bloc's defense spending. And the arrival of artificial intelligence has transformed many industries, but behind this growth lies an environmental impact that is rarely taken into account. Asking a question to ChatGPT requires 10 times more energy than asking a question to a search engine like Google. Training a large language model generates between 200 and 300 tons of carbon dioxide, the equivalent of 250 flights between New York and Beijing. Data centers which run artificial intelligence consume a lot of energy. By 2030, they are expected to account for 3% of the world's consumption, equivalent to the annual consumption of France or Germany. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.